When Congress comes back to the Capitol after Labor Day, there are really only two things on its must-do list for the fall. Both are central to maintaining a stable federal budget, and right now, it looks like the deadlines for both are just one day apart, creating a prime time for political brinkmanship going into the last weekend of September. The Treasury now says that by Friday the 29th, the debt ceiling has to be raised in order to prevent a government default. By the next night, legislation must be enacted allowing all departments and agencies to keep spending money in order to avoid a partial government shutdown when the new fiscal year begins October 1. That 0 hour for spending happens every year, and the easiest way out is well understood. Congress passes a bill known as a CR, for continuing resolution, that keeps the money flowing a while longer until lawmakers finalize decisions about altering priorities for the year ahead. The debt limit, also known as the debt ceiling, doesn't have to be addressed quite as often, and the thing is a bit tougher to understand. So here goes. The debt limit means the maximum amount of money that the federal government is allowed to borrow. It's like the limit on your personal credit card, except on a much bigger scale, as in 9 orders of magnitude bigger. Federal borrowing keeps happening because, year after year, tax revenue does not come close to covering all of the government's expenses, from Medicare to veteran benefits, buying new fighter jets to paying the troops, farm subsidies, aid to schools, medical research, NASA, national parks, and all the rest. So, the national debt is the sum of all the borrowing that's necessary to cover those annual deficits, which have happened in 46 of the past 50 years. The Treasury sells interest-bearing bonds to raise the money that bridges the gap between revenue and spending. It's the same reason we put the big-ticket essentials in our lives on credit cards or take out loans whenever our salaries and other income are not enough to pay all the family bills. Using the same analogy, increasing the limit on government borrowing has nothing whatsoever to do with Washington deciding it's time to crack the piggy bank and spend more. Instead, when Congress and the President raise the debt ceiling, they're simply acknowledging that more government bills have come due, and they're making a commitment to paying them all on time and in full. But make no mistake, these invoices are all for work that has been done, weapons that have been purchased, and government benefits that have been promised years before by Congresses controlled by both parties and endorsed by presidents from both parties. So, raising the debt limit is when today's politicians agree to make good on the commitments of their predecessors. Viewed that way, the decision might seem like a no-brainer, automatic even. And in every other country in the world, except Denmark, the National Treasury has the authority to pay whatever debts the politicians incur. Congress decided 100 years ago, when expenses surged for World War I, that it wanted a formal say-so. And for decades afterward, raising the debt ceiling was a routine matter. Only in the past few decades, when budget policies have become more heated and partisan, has the requirement become so politically fraught. Many members vote no, no matter what, as a way of registering disapproval with Washington's fiscal policies. Others threaten to vote no unless permission for more borrowing to cover past expenses is coupled with binding limits on future expenses. The analogy to home finances is this: unless a bickering couple can agree to give up movie night or avoid buying new winter coats in order to pinch some pennies going forward, they say they're going to refuse to pay the mortgage or keep current on their student loans. Of course, their bankers won't put up with that, and, with much more catastrophic consequences, neither would the millions of people the government owes money to, from Social Security beneficiaries here in the U.S. to Treasury bondholders across the globe. Allowing a government default could quickly create an economic and political crisis that would turn America into a global outlaw and boost the cost of borrowing for years. The current debt limit is right under $20 trillion. Since March, the Treasury has been taking some extraordinary, but legal, cash management measures to stave off the threat of a default. But Secretary Steve Mnuchin says those maneuvers will all be used up by September 29th.